All right. It's Monday. It's Monday Fun Day. It's Monday Fun Day here on the LTL Media Channel. What's going on, everybody? We're getting close. I can't believe it's almost August. It's almost August already. And I thought, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, after the retrial of Karen Reed, I said, okay, things are going to start calming down. We're not going to hear anything anymore. Oh, boy. It's a can of worms that just keeps opening itself up. I want to welcome everybody back in. I see amazing people here inside the chat. Lots of new subscribers, lots of new members. Welcome in. Again, if you don't know who I am, my name is Brian. This is LTL Media. LTL stands for Let's Talk Live. Everybody always asks, what does that mean? What does that mean? And we do, I do about 98% of my content here is live. That's why the 2-minute intro allows people to come in and hang out and say hi and gives people enough time to come in before we actually start our presentation. But tonight we're going to get into this idea that I had about, about a week ago. And I finished up a show with Todd and Nan. I'm going to bring them in a second, but I finished a show with Todd and Nan. I said, hey, I have this great idea. So I wrote this email to them, and I'll be transparent with everybody here. So this is back on Tuesday, the 22nd. So I had this idea literally after that Monday show, because we usually do Mondays together. I said, good morning, Todd and Nan. Great show last night. I got an idea for this upcoming Monday's episode, assuming you're both available and nothing major breaks in any of the cases we've been following. Reed, Birchmore, Walsh, John O'Keefe, and now King. I like to put together a presentation for the audience that maps out the overlapping officers, lawyers, and key figures involving in this case, Reed, Birchmore, Walsh, John O'Keefe, and King, and highlight how their repeated missteps have impacts in the pursuit of justice. Here's a rough structure on what I'm thinking. 1, a brief background on each case. 2, overview of the botched work or misconduct involved. And then 3, analysis of how the poor work and potential cover-up may be affecting the outcomes of each case. Let me know what you think, Brian. Well, guess what? On the 23rd, literally on that Wednesday, a Vanity Fair article drops, and it literally has exactly my idea. But I started putting a presentation together. I completed it, and we're going to go through it this evening. So without further ado, let's bring in my 2 awesome guests that join me here on Monday nights. I don't want to wait too much longer. We're going to bring in retired Mass State Police Todd McGhee. Todd, how are you?
Doing good.
That's good. And we're going to bring in my faithful attorney here on the LTL Media channel, Nan Gallagher. Hello, Nan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. So I had this, I keep laughing. I had this great idea, and I'm like, let's do this overlapping case. And then all of a sudden on Wednesday, my spine turned to glass. My idea was shot down, and the Vanity Fair article dropped. But it was great, and I thought it was a great idea. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it through my presentation tonight.
You got scooped by Vanity Fair. That means you've arrived, Brian.
I'm thinking big time, right?
Yeah, but I can attest he did send that email right after. It was like less than 24 hours after the show.
Yeah.
And I think that while Julie Miller did a fantastic job with that article, so well written, I've looked at what you've put together, and it's top notch, my friend.
Yeah, we'll go through the slides today. I'm not going to go through it verbatim. We can discuss this because I thought it'd be an interesting look. Now, looking at Karen's case. All right, Karen's case is the the top of all of this, and then you have all these spider legs that are building out from this case, and it just intertwines because now we're hearing, especially with the Miles King case the other day, Adam Lally had to go in and testify, and Trooper Proctor felt Trooper Proctor. Wow. I feel like I'm back in the Karen Reed case months ago. Michael Proctor wanted to play senior skip day and not show up and just have his attorney show up. But we're seeing the actual fallout from all these cases, and it's scary because it's not only going to be, I think, these group of cases, it's going to be others. Todd has always said it, that there's going to be more fallout in all of this. Todd, you still think we're going to hear more cases here?
Sticking to my guns, Brian. I'm smelling patterns. I'm seeing the same conduct that is being questioned by by the defendant's attorneys, and they're all asking the same questions. And they're all asking the same questions about all the same people. all the same investigators. This is not good. Not a good look for the Commonwealth. Not a good look for the state police. Colonel Noble's doing his best to try and clean up the agency with some of the faux pas that have happened, and just more fallout continues.
How does this make you feel, Todd? You know, I know you've sat through, you know, at least 3 years of hearing all of this stuff. How is this really making you feel? And I know you love your organization. You spent 24 years giving your life to the agency. You were one of the good guys in this. You call it like it is. How is this making you feel with all of this fallout?
You know, Brian, I speak my mind. I'm my own man. I have my own thoughts about things. You know, I take a conservative approach when we start rolling back peeling back the layers of such when we do our analysis. But it's not the fact of trying to be a good guy. It's calling a spade, and I'll defend good police work. I'll defend my former agency when they're doing the right thing. But I'm not going to stand here and cover for misconduct and wrongdoing, virtually where you've got people's civil rights potentially being violated. So whether it's the Mass State Police or any other municipality, you know, if it wasn't for the good men and women that I still know on the job that would never put themselves in never put their conduct in a predicament like this, I would have lost faith a long time ago. So I speak hopefully for those voices. I hope they don't mind me speaking on their behalf. But it's the good men and women that put on the uniform, whatever department they're in, not just the state police, that come to work, want to do the right thing, have not forgotten their oath of office, and continue throughout their career to bring justice where justice is needed. So, you know, we just continue to support the good people.
And that's what I love about you, Todd. You just call it the way it is. You call it the way it is, and you never deviate. Nan, we have a lot of issues here. It's compounding, and more of it's coming out. Miles King the other day. I mean, it's all, you know, stemming back to Karen Read.
It all does, and even before Karen Read. But I'd just like to give a couple comments. One, I've known Todd long enough now to say with certainty that he would defend police conduct, not only if they did everything right, but even if it was against the public opinion. So he would, I'm sure he has the integrity to stand on any platform and say, they did everything right. They followed all the necessary steps and procedures and protocols and standards of care, as we call that. Even if your audience or any other audience was disinterested in that, because that's the type of stand-up officer he is. In addition to what you were just saying, Brian, as far as it all stems back to Karen's case is really just the cocoon. I look at it as, well, you know, it was there and it had major issues and it was growing. And inside of it, once the verdict hit, and even before, where things were coming to light and she was asking questions, her lawyers were, then a beautiful, and it really is to me, a beautiful butterfly, because as horrible as things are right now with what's been coming to light, a beautiful butterfly is coming out of that cocoon. And we're now starting to see the sunlight. That's the best disinfectant, shining a light on Birchmore, Just on Root's case, Miles King, Brian Walsh. And there are missteps by the police in every single one of those cases, whether or not the person who is either charged with a crime or a victim is being blamed for something. Whatever the fact pattern is, there's one common denominator, and that is the overreach and overstepping of law enforcement and the district attorney's office. And I love helping to uncover it with you both.
Yeah, and I don't want people to come to this channel and say, oh, you know, you're an anti-police channel. I am not an anti-police channel. I know good police officers. I have one on my panel, and I've talked about this. Is just Todd calls it like it is. And I love that we have the friendship and the relationship that we have. I have many other police officers that I connect with, and they do things the right way. So I want people to understand my channel is not an anti-police police channel, I'm anti-corruption.
Mhm.
And there is a major issue with corruption here in Massachusetts. And now, you know, I was just out reporting the other day, Sean from Long Island Audit. I went out and reported, you know, he was out in New London, Connecticut, facing some charges with an incident with a Connecticut state trooper where he literally was spit on in his mouth, acting as a journalist, and had a gun held to him, and he was chest bumped and assaulted off the property. So, you know, we're seeing this pattern. And you know, I'm really, I guess, excited, and I'm really glad that people have an entity like this to call things out and take an interest in this, because we want things to be done right in our society. We want to be treated fairly. I want people to get a fair trial if they're ever convicted, you know, accused of anything. And we have to keep shaving out and scrubbing out the corrupt law enforcement. Things need to be done the right way, because if not, there's major implications. And believe me, some of the things we're going to go through tonight, there are good players in some of this. Some of these defendants have some pretty serious charges, and I'll be honest with you, I think they did some of it, and that's just my opinion. But there's some bad people that could be let out on the street. But if there's something that's infringing on their rights, that needs to be called out.
You know, Brian, I always say that even Charles Manson got due process.
That's
Look how crazy he was.
That's good.
Right?
I mean, it is. Everyone's entitled to it, and any prosecutor should subscribe to that theory. Any defense attorney, you can expect to hear that, but they all are supposed to get due process, and that's not happening here. And victims are supposed to get justice. That
Yes.
includes John O'Keefe, for anyone who's hate watching right now, because I think we can all agree on the Karen Reed case that we all would like to see justice for John O'Keefe. It's sad that he may never get that justice because of that overreach that I'm speaking about.
Yeah. Let's answer this. And I think this is a great question. Normally we try to save questions for the end, but I saw this pop up and I think this is great. Melissa says, do you think police force need to have some help with mental health? Seems like they are so unhinged. I'm going to defer to Todd first, and then I'll go to Nan.
So that's a great question, and I think one that is worthy of giving some attention, Brian. So thank you for calling that out. In law enforcement, when mental health goes unchecked, what we're doing is we're ignoring the trauma that men and women in uniform go through and experience. And eventually it's going to shape their behavior. And, you know, my wife used to say to me, why don't you ever talk about work when you come home? And I made up in my mind that I was going to leave the bad things of my shift in the driveway because I didn't want to relive it. Now, probably in retrospect, that probably wasn't the right decision, or maybe I should have found a way to seek counseling in order to deal with some very, very horrible things. But that being said, police departments are better at things like peer support groups that can help them with their experiences. However, it's usually you don't go and see the peer support counselor until you've had a couple of setbacks. That being said, that's not to misconstrue misconduct. And that's not to misconstrue people that just don't care, and police officers that just don't care about people's rights and protecting the oath of office that they took. Different animal, different person. But when you talk about mental health, you can't ignore the trauma that police officers go through. And it's there, it's real, and there's a stigma in sometimes that comes with seeking that type of counseling. But the bottom line is that for those who want to seek it, it is available. But I always say, no good cop wants to work with a bad cop. So bad cops, find another job, find another career in another profession.
Nan, before I go to you, I just got a quick follow-up with Todd. Todd, what do you think gets police officers to that point of not caring anymore? Is that something that's inside the person? as they come into the profession, or is that a learned behavior, or do they just get disenchanted through their tour?
It happens through your tour, and it hits about 3 to 5 years. And if you don't put it in check, it'll follow you. If you're able to make a full career of it, it'll follow you all the way through.
Hmm.
I can speak for myself. Right about my third, fourth year, I started getting very cynical because you see the worst of people's lives. Everyone's entitled to a bad day, but when you see it over and over and over again, you start to wonder, what kind of world are we living in? How much bad in society can you continue to see? How much can you continue to see people suffering that really truly need help? I used to say this to recruits all the time. People will need your help before they need your handcuffs.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. So, it's the little seeds like that I tried to plant in very impressionable minds that come on the job, want to change the world, and might get caught up in the superhero syndrome. That's not reality. You come across people that are in rough shape, that if you want to be a superhero, look for those people that you can help, not necessarily the ones that you're going to take away to jail. They'll come. The bad actors, they'll come. There's enough of them. But there's more people that are victims, so to speak, that need some type of real support.
Wow.
Very powerful statement, Todd. All right, Nan, if you want to take a crack at this.
There's no way. There's no way I could top that. I'm sorry. Like, I know when he got game, and he got game on that. No, seriously, we've talked in recent weeks about the culture and the cultural problems within law enforcement. And I do believe, to that person's question, that mental health counseling can help. But that is, in my opinion, a byproduct. It's a byproduct of the environment in which many law enforcement officers are brought up in. And if you allow these behaviors to persist, or just the cutting of corners, the skirting of the rules, that becomes ingrained in them. It's like the misconduct that Todd is speaking about. So if the culture is allowed to just thrive in its own ecosystem, in a nice warm environment, and there's no checks and balances, which these cases that we're going to talk about are the checks and balances. But if you don't have anyone else looking with that lens, it will just persist, and no amount of mental health counseling is going to help that. But I do believe in the power of it and the benefit of it, but it's lower on my list of important things to address with law enforcement.
Todd, is there any I don't know, I guess reviews? Does your chief or your superior review every 90 or 6 months, 1 year? Do they ask you those questions? How are you doing? Do you go through any type of evaluation like that in your tour?
There's an employee review that's, from what I can remember, is basically on your performance. Are you sending in your reports? It falls short, Brian. It really does fall short of the care and well-being that first responders need. I'll tell everyone just a quick story, and this was after the tragedy at Sandy Hook. The colonel of the state police at the time was given a presentation. I was blessed to be able to be there, and he said the one thing that he underestimated was the mental health care for his first responders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone got the point that the teachers, the employees, the survivors all needed that mental health support. But he said what the public safety officials responded to, he never could have in a million years thought of the amount of mental health support that they needed post-incident. It was devastating. So, to walk away from incidents like that, and then here, a couple of years later, or, a fatal accident that you're responding to, or, there's just a number of things that you respond to in your career. And sometimes they line up back to back to back to back. And that's heavy.
Yeah. I had 2 officers, Las Vegas cops. I don't know if you're familiar with their YouTube channel, Todd. They did a lot of work in the Karen Reed case. and they actually came into my studio, and both of them responded to the Mandalay Bay shooting. And I literally did not think that this reaction was going to happen talking about it. But Brian from the LV Cops literally broke down in the studio. And I was just like, whoa, like it kind of shocked me. I mean, this stuff is so real. And he's like, this is stuff that I'm never going to forget. The things that I saw, the smells of what I could smell, you know, seeing people the way that they were hurt. He's like, that'll never, it's like combat. I mean, I get it. You know, it gives that real effective to what, you know, officers see and what people see in the time of war. I mean, I can see how that can affect you. I mean, full transparency, doing this YouTube and having a social media, I mean, I'll be open, full transparency. I go to mental health counseling because it got to a point where I was getting like crazy and I just needed an outlet to pour this stuff out instead of pouring it out on my friends because I felt bad, you know, and I'm like, I have so much stuff that I need to get out and just say, I mean, I have no shame. If someone wants to go out and better themselves mentally, which I think everybody should, because it calms you down. I have a great guy that I meet with, and he went into monkhood for like 6 years. Is like the most calming person that has helped me out. And you know, again, you know, mental health is very important. Very, very
the strange thing about mental health and trauma is that you don't have to have the firsthand experience to be traumatized. That's what's so strange about it. People must say, "Oh, you have to be behind the driver's seat, you know, to have that trauma from a motor vehicle accident." Well, no. If you were standing in the corner, witnessed it, that by itself takes on its own form of trauma. So, you know, for all of us, the things that we're exposed to, regardless of our vocation, we just our mental health is precious.
Yeah. I agree. Nan, your hair is the star today. So everybody's commenting on the hair, and it looks beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much, guys.
The hair has taken over the street.
I must look like shit every other time I come on.
That's not
sorry.
true. You know that.
Todd, I think I got you beat on the hair.
And I got a fresh cut today, too. How's my hair look? Is it
looking pretty? It's nice.
Apparently, the trolls said that I went out and got hair plugs. I mean, this is what we've come to, you know.
So funny. It's so fun. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it. In all candor, I didn't style it myself today. So if I did it myself, it wouldn't look so good. But we're going to have even a more entertaining talk tonight.
Yes.
Than my hair.
Unicorn 1964, they becoming a new YouTube member. All right, let's get into some of the presentation today. But before we get into you know, my presentation, there was a motion that was filed. Karen Reed kind of wants some of her stuff back. She hasn't received a few things, and it was a motion for an order, and I'm sure Nan can speak to this, but it was a motion to order to basically to return property. Now comes that Miss Reed is in an above entitled matter and respectively moves pursuant to the Superior Court Rule 61 that the Honorable Court order to be returned all of Miss Reed's personal property, including but not limited to following items: her 2021 Lexus LX 570 and her personal cell phone. As reasons, therefore, counsel attempts to negotiate the return of the listed property with 88 Adam Lally in late June, as property is in this possession, custody, and control of the Massachusetts State Police, has not been heard back. Thus, counsel is respectfully requesting the Honorable Court return the order of the items immediately. And this was filed actually today, 7/28/25. Go ahead, Nan, if you want to speak to this one.
Yeah, it's very, very common application to be filed by a defense attorney on behalf of a criminal defendant who's been acquitted. It's also very common for a prosecutor's office and law enforcement to delay or at least take their sweet time on providing that personal property back. But I will say, you know, they waited, they were patient. And now what are we, roughly a month and 10 days later?
Yeah.
It's time. I have had a client who waited upwards of a year to get his personal property back, including a vehicle. And it's just ridiculous. I finally had to get in front of a judge, and I had filed a motion after about 2 months of not getting his property back. And the judge finally heard my motion almost a year to the day after he was acquitted. So, I mean, it does vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We'll see if the Commonwealth complies. They should hand it all over. It's not like they need these particular evidentiary items to allegedly prove the case against someone else. For example, I mean, if the Commonwealth decided to do the right thing and go after the right culprits, they don't need Karen's car to do that. They don't need Karen's phone to do that. So I would say if 30 days passes and she doesn't get her property back, then they should file a motion. And then we'll see if Judge Bev actually wants to be prompt and attentive to resolving that in her favor. Ultimately, she will get her items back, and she'll have to assess if they've been damaged or any of the search or examination or experimentation with these items far exceeded any testing or examination that she thought or was told had happened with these items. If that's the case, then she tacks it on to her 1983 claim.
Yeah, I was going to say, do they have to pay for I mean, her car is essentially destroyed.
She'd have to sue them. She'd have to sue them for it as part of her 1983 action. But, you know, it's a sliding scale. It would be understandable for there to have been invasive testing of the rear gate of the vehicle. But if if the seating was all ripped up and sliced open and things went far beyond what would have normally had to have been examined, or if there was really extraneous destructive testing in the quote chip off process, then, you know, she should throw that into her 1983 action, which is coming.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that you would sue and listen, you destroyed my car and I'm not guilty of this crime. And you literally tore apart my car that's probably undrivable. And I'm sure that they want to get it so they can start photographing it for evidence, you know, all the damage that's happened to it, and say, hey, you owe me here. You know, this car's been in your control and custody. She literally still paying that car payment, by the way, and it has missed out on her vehicle. So let me answer this real quick. Francis is asking, what is on my shirt? I have a Metallica and Justice for All shirt on today. So
very
I felt
appropriate.
it was very fitting for this live stream today. All right, let's get into this presentation. I guess there's some reports that there's been a shooting in New York. We'll keep our eyes on this, and thank you for keeping us updated. It says 6 wounded in the shooting, 1 New York police officer. My prayers are with that police officer if they have been injured, but we'll keep an eye on it. And thank you for updating us in the chat. All right, let me pull up this presentation. So here we go. The ties that bind, the potential fallout. And again, I'm not going to go through this, you know, verbatim, but gives a little bit of background on some of these cases. And I want to talk about just the major players. You know, I don't want to say that Miles King is the end game, but it is now exposing what we heard the other day, the laziness of Adam Lally, Michael Proctor not turning over crucial discovery information of search warrants, 6 of them. And it's like Lally's in there and he's playing the blame game. Well, I did reach out to him, but he never got back to me. And this, you know, I have a process of things that I do, and I never heard from them, but they were in the same room together, but they didn't discuss any of this stuff, which I find hard to believe, but we'll go through some of this stuff. So obviously the Karen Read case, and if anybody is new to the channel and they haven't followed my work, Karen Read case, I did an extensive a lot of work on her case over the last 2 years. We did tons of fundraising. These 2 wonderful people on this panel stood behind Karen Read as well and did tons of work to talk about the truth in her case. You know, when I first heard about her case, I knew instantly there was something wrong. And we gathered a collective group of great people, supporters, reporters, journalists, YouTubers, boots on the ground people, and did tremendous amount of work here in the state of Massachusetts. So Karen Read, case summary, the Commonwealth versus Karen Read. Who is Karen Read? Karen Read is a former financial analyst from Mansfield, Massachusetts. She became the center of a high-profile murder case after her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, was found dead outside in the snow at 34 Fairview in Canton, Massachusetts on January 29, 2022. Karen Read was acquitted on June 18, 2025. Jury found her not guilty of second-degree murder, manslaughter while driving under the influence, leaving the scene of a collision. She was, however, convicted of operating under the influence of liquor. And we look in essentially the Commonwealth's case, the prosecution, kind of took that in the summary. And basically, they say that, Karen drove in a drunken rage. She hit John O'Keefe just outside of 34 Fairview and then essentially drove away. The key evidence from the Commonwealth was Karen Reed's taillight fragments near the body, the cell phone data showing she returned to the scene, and then, all those statements of, I hit him, and that was not obviously the case. The defendant's case, and they came back with John O'Keefe went inside 34 Fairview and was attacked by someone in the house. His body was staged outside to frame Reed, and then law enforcement, including, here we go. Here's the first name, man. Mass State Police Trooper, at the time, Mass State Police Trooper Michael Proctor, and you're going to hear that name a lot through this presentation, orchestrated a cover-up due to the lies and the connection to the Albert family. So we had the key evidence: lack of blood and DNA on Reed's SUV, injuries to John O'Keefe, inconsistent with a car strike. We had dog bite injuries, though. We sure as hell had that, and facial trauma, and actually head trauma as well. And then Proctor's text messages mocking the case in Reed, and then the destruction and contamination of crucial evidence. So we have the ties that bind. Key figures, potential conflicts of interest. Oh, look, Todd, it's that name again. Michael Proctor, at the time, Trooper Michael Proctor, lead investigator, were personal ties to the Albert family, later exposed for misconduct. And then we have, obviously, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, but I want to kind of keep this to the law enforcement ties. And then Canton PD, Mass State Police PD, accused of botching the investigation or actively covering up the truth. And I'm going to stick with the Fantastic Four here. So we have Yuri Buchanan. He was the Mass State Police Sergeant, Proctor's supervisor. Key contributors and allegations: discipline for not reporting Proctor's misconduct, reassignment to administrative duty after the trial. We have now former Trooper Michael Proctor. He was the lead investigator, fired for sending vulgar, biased text messages and leaking case details. His misconduct collapsed credibility of the investigation. We have Brian Tully, which we've been hearing a lot of his name a lot more lately.
Yes, we have.
And I think there's going to be more on Brian Tully that falls pretty soon, because I've been hearing his name come up in a lot of articles and cases, and his name has been front and center. So he was a detective lieutenant, named in the defense filing over chain of custody issues, viewed as enabling systematic failure. And then I'm going to go down here to who else do I have here? Nicholas Garino. And we hear his name a lot in these cases too. He was the digital forensics expert, provided phone GPS analysis, testified at Reed's call and message history, viewed as supporting prosecution's motive theory, and criticized by defense for selective interpretation. What do we make of all of this? I mean, obviously we came out, we had trial one. I guess we can say that Adam Lally did a much better job as he has Hank Brennan, and actually convinced a couple of jurors that Karen Reed was guilty of the alleged crimes that they put out there. And then we had the retrial. And I think with the retrial, we saw more of what I try to call the curtain to the Wizard of Oz was pulled back more. And I think that the way that the defense attacked this the second way around didn't get into the who's who killed John O'Keefe, but we got into more of the corruption, exposed the laziness in the investigation, exposed more of the planting evidence and custody control. And obviously, Karen was acquitted. I know that was a lot of loaded information. Now, what's scary about this is now those major players that have been exposed here, and this ultimately had to fall on Karen. And I'm gonna ask both of you. This ultimately had to fall on Karen because I believe, and this is what's crazy about this, if Karen Reed would have went to jail, we would have never saw all of the fallout that we're seeing in all of these other cases. I mean, am I crazy to think that? Todd, what do you think?
I know where you're going with that, Brian. I would take this angle that the police investigation was so bad in the investigation of John O'Keefe's death that it would have these other savvy Scapicchio and other defense attorneys, it would have raised an eyebrow for them to say, if it was that bad, even though they got a guilty that they were looking for, the investigation was so bad, I really think it would have opened up Pandora's box regardless, because it was so bad.
Because I sit here and say, if this wouldn't have happened, would they have known? Would we have gotten what I'm trying to get to?
I know where you're going.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, if this didn't happen, would it really have got, would all these other cases and all this, I guess, botchedness, if that's even a word.
It is now.
Botchedness. I'm trying to, find the connective tissue. Would they have really discovered this, or would have been buried? Nan, what do you think?
I think it would have remained buried for now. It's kind of like what I was saying a little bit earlier in terms of her case was, in my opinion, was the cocoon, and it has opened up, and now everything else is coming to light. There has been this intentional ignorance, meaning there has been law enforcement and probably civilians and mainstream media who has just ignored the real problem, which was never Karen Reed, and it's never Brian Walsh or Miles King. The real problem, as I see it, is the corruption going on up there, the lack of the checks and balances. So because Karen was unafraid to ask questions, to challenge authority, and I gave like a whole presentation of this in a lecture that I did at one of her fundraisers. And I tried to tell that part of the story, which was she was courageous enough to ask questions. And it wasn't just, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? But she knew that she hadn't hit him, and she was unafraid to challenge. If you all recall, when she got upcharged, I think it was Buchanan she was talking to in processing, and she's like, you all know who did this, right? Like,
we're all part of the game or something.
And my tail light got pulverized, like that moment in time where she really, at least aggressively, started to question it. And because she did that, and because she didn't accept any plea, and I don't have no knowledge that they presented her with a plea agreement or any opportunity to plea, but because she was brave enough to face an establishment, which I refer to as a monster, this has allowed the unveiling of all of these patterns that you're talking about this evening in these other cases. That's my view. And guess what, everyone? I'm glitching tonight, so wouldn't be a show without it.
Here. We were waiting for it, Nan.
There it is.
They did actually give her an offer. It was in the first Vanity Fair article, and I believe it was 2 years. You take the 2 years, you go away, and she's like, I'm not taking 2 years. I didn't do this.
Though, I can tell you both from a lawyer's standpoint that and I have no knowledge that her lawyers had this discussion with her, but I have had the experience where I've had to talk to clients saying, you may not get an offer like this again. And look what you're exposed to if you're convicted. So you have to go through the pros and the cons, all the risks and the benefits if you don't accept a plea, and what can happen and the costs associated with it. But she was so fierce, a fierce warrior who said, like you said, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to challenge authority and the machine and the monster. And by doing that, she didn't just, with her team and the support of all of the boots on the ground and those nationally and internationally, she didn't just become vindicated because of that. She has been the catalyst to help uncover all of this that we're talking about.
That's what I was getting at.
Man, can I piggyback on that? Also, I think the linchpin of the entire trial was the federal investigation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, but not think about how many of the different witnesses that investigation touched.
Mm.
Yes.
right? So, Brian, to your hypothetical, if indeed there was a guilty on counts 1, 2, and 3, there was just so much exposure of misconduct everywhere else. I just feel that these other attorneys would say, let me just inquire.
Yeah.
Well, we heard it in the Brian Walsh case, and we're going to talk about that. I mean, they started inquiring after all those Proctor text messages came out. They said, wait a minute.
Yep.
If he's talking like this in Karen Reed's case, and I said that all along too.
You
I mean,
did.
we had plenty of discussions on this channel about that. That's not the first time this guy's acted out like this.
Nope.
I
You
mean,
were
that
saying
is
that.
immaturity. That is immaturity, and that is a lack of respect for the job. And this guy wanted to go in as a gunslinger and go in and go, well, I'll put a few years in, work my ass off a little bit, get up in rank, get my pay, work on getting my pension. And then, you know, for whatever reason, you know, he either flipped or he's always been this way and had that type of attitude towards everything that he's done in his life. It's like denier's syndrome. Like, I do these bad things, but I'm just going to deny, like, you know, I'll kind of, and maybe he's gotten away with it because we've seen it in some of the reports, like, you know, hey, I'm just so sorry that I did that. And
Yeah.
maybe, you know, his friends and his peer group say, yeah, it's, you know, listen, Mike, it's okay. You know, we move on. But this time it didn't work because of such the profound impact that it did to not only Karen's life, but we're seeing it. And that's basically what we're talking about tonight, the ripple effect through all these cases.
And if I may just for one moment add one character that I think is important to this presentation as I'm listening to
Yeah.
you and as I'm thinking about these other cases that will be discussed, most notably for this point, Miles King's case. Another character that needs to be put on this presentation for Karen is Adam Lally right now, because we're now seeing in lines with what you're speaking about, Brian. It's not just law enforcement who just kind of wake up one day and start to be inept or to commit misconduct or to send salacious texts outside of the bounds of their law enforcement unit to buddies and friends. Lally has demonstrated through his own sworn in-court testimony as of last week, which we'll get to, on Miles King, that he has a pattern and practice of disclosing discovery late, of not providing discovery that's been requested, that even hasn't been requested, that he has an affirmative obligation to hand over. He's made misrepresentations to the court on the Miles King case previously that he's satisfied all discovery obligations. That's a real small example of what he admitted to the other day. And he's not done. I think he goes August 5th.
Yeah,
I'm gonna bring popcorn for
and
that.
Proctor's going to be there too.
Right. But with all of that said, he exhibited those tendencies and practices in Karen's case. So peppered throughout this whole story is and these stories is Adam Lally, and I dare say Hank Brennan as well, but Hank is only germane to the Karen Reed case.
Yeah.
Lally is a common denominator here as well.
Well, he pulled that shit through both Karen's trials too, of sending late discovery over. I mean, go back and listen to those hearings when they were complaining in those early pretrial hearings of information that they were trying to get, you know, reports from Bodie that the prosecution held on to for a long time. You know, sample testing. I mean, go back and listen to that May 5th court hearing, the first one when everybody packed the courtroom. There's so many discovery issues that they're talking about in that hearing. I mean, this is what he did. And then he lazied it all out. Oh, well, you know, I have no control over when the lab said, well, how about this? How about calling them or talking to a superior in the lab and say, hey, we have a pretty important case here. And this defendant, you know, has rights and we don't want to violate those rights. You know,
and the buck stops. Sorry, Brian, the buck stops.
Okay, go ahead.
The buck stops with him. So if he's got the Proctors or the Tullys or the Buchanans who are stringing him along, not giving him what he needs, Lally has the ultimate responsibility. He's the one who has to make representations to the defense counsel and to the court. And he has a duty of candor to the court under the ethics rules. There are due processes that he's entitled to. I know, Todd, we were talking about due process before. So the buck stops with him. I think, as Betterow will say, you know, these are the guys who wear the white hats. Like, that's his take on it. And I very much respect Mark Betterow's opinion on that, because you can't just say, well, hey, I didn't hear from the lab, or hey, I didn't follow up, or I didn't document it.
It's not good enough, Nan.
It's not. He's a character here. And I dare say, I know someone on X had asked me my opinion on this, and was specifically going to be watching this evening for it, but here it is. I will also go as far to say that I see real issues with McLaughlin. I do not recall her first name, Lauren, whatever her first name is. And she's been very quiet throughout the Karen Read case, not quiet in filings, written filings. I mean, there were things that she was putting forth to the court, or we also refer to it as the tribunal, that had real fundamental flaws and inaccuracies in them. There were things that she was arguing that were contrary to accepted practices of law. She is a co-signer on many of the filings that were made by the prosecution throughout Karen's case. Now we're seeing her, and forgive me, folks, it's been a long day for me, but she was in the hot seat in front of Judge Frenier, however you pronounce her name, on, I believe it was Friday. Was that Walsh? I don't remember if that was the Walsh case. There's Walsh, you know, she's also, the buck stops with her. She is probably, I have to be a little guarded in how I describe it, but probably one of the most problematic members of the prosecution team, because she's almost like a stealth weapon that the prosecutors were using. She doesn't say much, but she sure writes a lot, and she often keeps things close to the vest. Is not, from my observation, very forthcoming to the court. So that's an abbreviated version of what I could say about her, but it's not anything that makes me proud or happy to call her a fellow Esquire.
Well, that's why I always loved Liza Little. She didn't really say too much, but she wrote a lot to fire back at Laura McLaughlin, which was really great. That was her strong suit in Karen's case. I just gotta stop for my sponsor, the Star Drive-In, and then we'll see the flip side. We'll get to the other cases on the flip side of this ad. All right, we'll be back in about a minute and a half. Need a break from modern life? We'll travel back in time to the Star Drive-In. That's East Taunton's iconic retro hotspot. Fun for the whole family. Enjoy great food, entertainment, and timeless memories. They got free community events all season long, including movies under the stars, live music and tailgating, Jeep meets, classic car shows, and bike nights. While you're there, indulge in over 100 flavors of soft serve, 80 flavors of Bliss and Gifford's hard ice cream, plus a rotating selection of 10 flavors of Dole Whip. The Star Drive-In is not your average fast food place. Everything is made fresh to order using quality ingredients. Fresh seafood is delivered daily, and pizza dough made twice a day for maximum freshness. I love their pizza. The Star Drive-In, where food, fun, and family memories never go out of style. They're conveniently located at 205 Myrick Street in East Taunton. That's exit 16 off Route 140. Make sure to visit their website or follow them on Facebook for their latest menus and upcoming events. And hey, while you're there, say hi to Erica and her team. And if you mention LTL at the register, you'll receive 10% off your entire purchase. That's the Star Drive-In in East Taunton. It's the most iconic retro hotspot. Yes. Go support the Star Drive-In. Go say hi to Erica and her team. You best be all, when you're going over there and ordering, say LTL sent me. Come on, you'll receive 10% off your order. All right, let's get back to the presentation. So we talked about roles and allegations, and then we had the Fantastic Four. I call them the Fantastic Four: Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, Garano, and this is the potential fallout and botched from the investigation. Obviously, we had Michael Proctor, former trooper, had been fired, sending vile, misogynistic, and biased text messages about Karen Read, shared sensitive information details with non-law enforcement. Credibility absolutely destroyed, became a liability to the prosecution's case. There is so much spillover from this guy now. Text received is with a clear bias and unprofessional conduct. Defense used his misconduct to undermine the entire investigation. We had Buchanan disciplined, unreal, lost 5 days of vacation for failing to report Proctor's misconduct. He'd been reassigned, removed from the field duty, and placed in an administrative Mass State Police role, publicly criticized for an enabling misconduct by his subordinate, and testimony appeared defensive and less credible during the trial. And then we have Tully, named in a defense motion alleging mishandling of evidence and failure to preserve integrity, roles and chains in custody issues with serious questions and supervisory oversight. And then while not fired, was involved in eroded public trust of the Mass State Police leadership. And then we have Guarino, however you want to say it, digital forensic reports, expert who analyzed call logs, text message, GPS data. You can hear a lot about him in the Sandra Birchmore case. No official discipline, but defense accused him of selective interpretation to support motive-driven narratives. His testimony became a flashpoint for debate over prosecutorial bias in digital evidence presentations. Todd, how does this make you feel?
Brian, you could actually change the Fantastic Four to the Fabulous Five if you throw in the Chico. The Chico was falling after the second trial. So I can share with your audience the structure of the investigative teams. I spent 2 years in the State Fire Marshal's office as an arson investigator, and I was on the North team. So we covered communities. Chelsea, Revere, Lynn at the time was where I was living, Lawrence, Andover, Lowell, and a lot of those communities were very heavy arson. The crime of arson was very prevalent in all those communities. We worked as a team. We had a sergeant and probably 5, maybe 6 troopers that would cover those communities. And like the DA's office, you responded in numbers in your investigation. I say that because if you're working as a team, then the team's going to have certain practices. So what we're seeing in Karen Reed's, in the John O'Keefe investigation, we're going to see the same patterns appear in all of these other cases. The big problem is we probably have some real legitimate guilty defendants. And if somehow they're released because of, again, a botched investigation, that's going to be a travesty.
Yeah, there's one in particular on this list, I believe is the next case we're going to get to, that ultimately scares me, that I think is going to cause a big conundrum in all of this. So we'll move along here. And this is the one that I was talking about, is Brian Walsh. I mean, this is a major problem. A lot of evidence points in the direction that this guy had done it. So I'm not going to go through the entire case summary. I'm sure a lot of the viewers here or you can just read what's on the screen. I just want to get to the connective tissues here because it would take me forever to get through this presentation. But let's just do a quick update. So current status of as of 2025, Brian Walsh is being held without bail pending trial. The case has not yet gone to trial. Jury selection is expected soon. I believe his trial is scheduled for October. A massive amount of digital forensic and circumstantial evidence is expected to be presented, which is going to cause a major problem because, again, that connective tissue of Michael Proctor. This guy was so fucking sick that and you're going to hear about what he searched out if people are new to this case. And I have some quotes of this of what he searched out. This guy was so sick that he took his son's iPad and searched all these terms on his son's iPad so it wouldn't connect his cell phone essentially to the crime. Sick stuff. So his charges are murder and improper transport of a body and misleading investigators. Again, you can read up or actually go on my channel, and I have a lot of the court hearings on Brian Walsh's case. So the motive, prosecutors believe the motive was financial and controlled based. Anna was allegedly preparing to leave him. Brian's financial situation was unraveling. She was the primary breadwinner. He has reportedly contacted her employer after her disappearance, pretending that she was still alive. So, we go into, and I'm just going to skip through this again. The ties. Michael Proctor, now former fired Michael Proctor, trooper, served as the lead investigator again on Anna Walsh's and the Karen Reed case, suspended and later relieved from duty due to text message misconduct in the Reed case. We have Buchanan again. He's the supervisor of Proctor. Tully's here again, part of the investigative team, named alongside with Proctor and Buchanan in motions regarding investigative conduct. And we have Fanning, also Mass State Police, one of the several troopers referenced in Brian Walsh's defense in reviewing investigative misconduct. We have Schmidt of the Cohasset Police Department, assigned a parallel supervisory role in the Cohasset Anna Walsh investigation after Proctor's removal. And then we have, look at this, Mr. Digital Forensics, Nicholas Garano, back, designed as a digital forensics specialist, analyzing the GPS call logs and text data. His data presentation became part of a broader defense critique. We had that argument just a couple of weeks ago. Well, not even a couple of weeks, probably just before the Reed retrial, where Brian Walsh's defense team argued after those text messages came out from Proctor and basically said, hey, if he's talking about this in Reed, we want to see everything. We want to see all of his personal devices. You know, was he talking about my client like this? I mean, this causes major problems, Nan.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I just want to let you both know, if you see me looking to the side, I have a larger version of your presentation that I can look at. That's what I'm looking at. But this is a huge problem. Surprisingly, once Judge Bev opened the door, or allowed the door to be open to having Proctor's text messages come into evidence, which they were relevant, and they were certainly relevant in his disciplinary action, which resulted in his termination. I was a little surprised, but very happy she allowed those text messages into the Karen Reed, both of the trials. Once she did that, any defense attorney for anyone, including Brian Walsh's defense attorney, or any defense attorney who has seen Proctor on the Brady list, or anyone else who may soon to be added to the Brady list, they're going to and should be asking questions, because that is exercising due diligence. If these attorneys see someone like Proctor having been resulted in disciplinary action and termination for bias and misconduct in the course of his investigation of the Karen Reed case, if a defense attorney for any other defendant doesn't pursue all avenues to explore his biases, conduct, his credibility, to pursue avenues to impeach him as a witness, or to in any way create an impression in front of a jury that he's not an upstanding law enforcement officer, then that attorney for that defendant is actually committing, in my opinion, malpractice and not providing effective assistance of counsel, which is a constitutional right. So, for example, if Brian Walsh's attorney did not kick the tires on Proctor or any other relevant law enforcement personnel tied to the Brian Walsh investigation, didn't explore these things with the court's assistance, and Brian Walsh, let's say, is convicted, and then hereafter wants to file an appeal of that conviction, he could have a viable, meaning a possibly winning argument in the future that he got ineffective assistance of counsel because his counsel did not explore these very issues. And we're seeing it on the Miles King case. We're seeing it on all of these cases. We're probably going to see it on these others that we're going to be talking about as well. So the door has been opened, and any defense counsel who's worth their weight in gold is going to walk right through it. And there's really no counter argument to it, no matter what McLaughlin, and I apologize, I think I saw Glamour say it's Laura. No matter what, you can tell I'm from New York. Laura. It's Laura. But no matter what Laura McLaughlin tried to put in front of Judge Frenier the other day, it's not going to hold water. She has an obligation to look at what was produced in the TUI dump and to find if there's anything at all that is remotely relevant to Brian Walsh's matter or any other, if the same argument could happen in any one of these other cases that we're talking about. And you can't simply say to a judge, I can assure you that everything we received in the TUI dump is relevant to Karen Reed. It doesn't work that way. Exculpatory evidence also includes impeachment evidence, evidence that a jury is allowed to consider and a defense attorney is allowed to use to try to poke holes in a witness's testimony during cross-examination. So it's really all, the importance of it is for the attorney to do everything possible he or she can for his client. Even if we're all looking at these facts right now saying, sure looks like the guy did it, just like Todd was saying, everybody gets due process. And that's why the overarching theme for me tonight is when law enforcement and prosecutorial actors like Lally or Brennan or Morrissey misuse and abuse and overstep the processes that they are duty bound to follow, these are the aftermath that we'll start to see, and it will have devastating consequences. Most notably, possibly guilty defendants may end up going free, or in their ultimate trials like Brian Walsh or Miles King, there may be evidence that is excluded that would really help secure a conviction of these individuals. But because of the mishandling, a judge may say, you got this because of fruit of the poisonous tree. I'm barring it from the jury's consideration. And that could result in a mistrial, an acquittal. And that's why everyone's got to do their jobs right. And I hate to Monday morning quarterback these things, but if everyone, including law enforcement and prosecution, followed the rules that they're duty bound and sworn to follow, we wouldn't be having this discussion no matter how much I enjoy it.
That's right.
Todd, why the corner cutting here, Todd? Why is no one stepping up as a superior and saying, hey, that's not the right way. It's not the way we do it. Is this just the superhero, we're unstoppable, we're on top of the world, and we're just going to do it our way, and that's the way it's going to be? And why did it take so long for this to all start kind of falling out? Was it hidden that much? I mean, does this scare you about other cases? Like,
Yeah, it does.
make sense of this to me, Todd. What the hell?
Yeah, Brian, some things can't be made sense of. Supervisors are expecting their subordinates to do their job out in the field, expecting them to be fact finders. But then you say, okay, well, where's the supervision? Is that laziness in not crossing T's and dotting I's? I know my supervisors always check my work, and if it was insufficient in some way, they kick it back to me, right? And it was my job to make sure that I had enough of the investigation covered for whatever decision was going to be made moving forward. But the bottom line was that everyone was held accountable. And when you see a lack of accountability, here we are having this conversation times how many cases, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg.
It's like, why are the feds not stepping in and arresting all these people? I mean,
they're still looking.
Oh, they're still looking. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that quote. No, we're going to get to that. Yeah, it hasn't concluded. All right, let's talk about this case really quick. Sandra Birchmore. I urge everybody, if you have not heard about this case, it's a case that you have to be clearly educated. It's probably one of the worst cases that we're going to talk about in the group of these cases that we're talking about. This was a very young lady that was groomed by horrible monsters that wore a uniform and badge to take advantage of her sexually. And ultimately, Matthew Farwell, who is now in federal custody, was accused of her murder. And here's a summary on the screen. I'm not going to go through it word for word, as you can read up about this case, but I urge everybody to look into it. And I'll just read this quick summary. So Sandra Birchmore was a vulnerable young woman exploited under the guise of mentorship by law enforcement. Her death, initially ignored and misclassified as by local authorities, and was reinvestigated, relieving a decades-long pattern of abuse. This led to the federal charges against Matthew Farwell and ongoing scrutiny over how local law enforcement departments handle cases involving their own. And thank God for Michael Bowden. I think I said his last name correctly. He's probably one of the top pathologists in the world, and actually looked back into Sandra's case and ultimately said, no, she did not unalive herself. This was a strangulation. She died by strangulation. There is security video footage, if people want to seek that out, is on my channel, of the Matthew Farwell coming into Sandra's residence and then ultimately leaving by himself. And then she was found a few days later with a ligature tied around her neck up against a door handle, which was very suspicious in her death. And then again, it was ultimately ruled as a homicide. So, and there's actually a still photo of that security footage. So obviously we have Matthew Farwell, William Farwell, more Stoughton police officers that are involved in this. It's an awful, horrible case. There's just things that I've read about that I don't ever want to read about in any other case. But if you are looking for that, you can seek that out. But again, this goes to the ties. We have Guarino. Am I saying his name right? Is it Guarino or
Guarino?
Guarino.
Yeah. He was the one that essentially he testified in Reed's case. He has connection to Brian Walsh's case. And ultimately, he's the one that claims there were 0 messages between Birchmore and Farwell. Well, guess what? There was over 32,000 messages. That's pretty freaking scary to suppress that type of information. What do we make of this? Are we hiding? Are we protecting our own here, Todd? What is it's not a misstep. It's not, it's not like it was 1 or 2 text messages. It was 32,000. How do you hide 32,000?
This is far from an oversight. It's far from a mistake. Far from, I didn't track that lead down. It's just a miscarriage of justice. And again, someone in the chat earlier put the Roosters are coming home. It's the Pandora's box has been open, and every single worm under a rock somewhere is going to come out. And this is just one example of dozens and dozens of missteps and misconduct in that investigation as well. So again, we see the pattern show up.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a pattern, but it's covering up for a fellow officer, even if Guarino or any of the other involved law enforcement didn't know fully what happened. There's enough here for there to have been a reasonable suspicion of culpability of a criminal standpoint for that to have been explored.
That's right.
There was an issue that was testified to by Buchanan in Karen's case where he was saying, we trust but verify, or we should trust but verify. That's what should happen. And in this case with Sandra, amongst many other missteps, there were those 32,000 text messages among, plus the surveillance footage. There were outreaches from certain fact witnesses to law enforcement saying there was something going on between Farwell and Sandra. So there was enough there for there to have been an investigation. Just so, and I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I would say just to make sure that they do exercise that due diligence and close the loop and say, we did explore that. It wasn't a rabbit hole. We went down it. We found no reason to, we interviewed Farwell and we asked him questions. Did you know that she was X number of weeks pregnant? Did you know this? Was it your child? Like, ask questions. Where were you on the night of blank? Tell us more about when you first commenced a relationship with her. They would have likely, if he were honest, developed some potential motive. Just like in Karen's case, had they actually properly interviewed Higgins, they would have discovered a potential motive. And non-curated text messages between Higgins and Karen Reed. That's why law enforcement, I'm left to feel like there is this intent to cover up or to protect one's own here, or this thin blue line that we keep talking about. It's more than just a proverb. It really means something. Also, in Sandra's case, when I was looking through your beautiful presentation, Brian, I'm saying to myself, this is a case where there was enough evidence at the time her body was found to explore a variety of additional potential suspects, because now I believe, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but I believe it has become announced that Matthew Farwell was not the father of this child. So who was? Now, maybe your chat's going to fill with speculation. Oh, it was this person or that person, but they can explore these issues had they gotten law enforcement witnesses talking, and they haven't done that. And one last point, as far as Guarino's apparent ineptitude, the oversight in finding 32,000 text messages or not finding them, that's simple incompetence. And I wouldn't even say beyond misconduct. He's incompetent at doing his job. That would be relevant. And the argument was made in Karen Reed's case. That is relevant evidence for Guarino to have been questioned about on the stand in Karen's case. Look at the Birchmore case. You didn't find 32,000 text messages. So how do we want the Karen Reed jury to trust that you were competent and performed your duties properly in procuring these electronic text messages or electronic data? It's all relevant, but Judge Beth shut that avenue down. That's why these are all connected.
Yeah, he did. Go ahead, Todd.
And when you have a situation in a case where there is an alleged relationship, isn't the text messages the first thing on your list of things to check?
Yes. I mean, it has to be. I mean, especially given her age at the time. I mean, that I don't recall Farwell's age at the time, but Sandra's age, it's all about the digital evidence. It's all about the text.
Underage. So if anybody, just filling in the gaps. She was underage when all this started happening. What was I going to say? So let's say Farwell goes down for this. Do we see any discipline for Guarino, Todd? Do we see anything happen to him?
I can't see how it can't. It's just a repeat of the Karen Reed trial about police misconduct.
Yeah.
And one last point on Sandra's case. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's a complete atrocity that Morrissey has not filed state charges against Farwell. The fact that this rests in the hands of the feds right now, it's this turf war, and he is still maintaining that the original cause of death is proper, and all evidence is shining a big bright light in front of him, but yet he refuses to concede that Michael Baden, as you said, the world-renowned pathologist, that the FBI, that they might know a thing or two. He's refusing to concede that, but yet he prosecutes Karen Reed not once, but twice on evidence that that her Lexus allegedly hit John O'Keefe, that he thought was potent evidence and proof of criminal culpability. But what the feds have uncovered and Michael Baden have uncovered in Sandra's case, no state charges are warranted at this time. The hypocrisy is notable. Nothing to see here, right?
And the scary thing about it, Guarino did the extractions in Brian Walsh's case too. So a lot of questionable. Again, this is what I wanted to point out to everybody. All those ties, when corruption starts leaking through, you might have some people that are allegedly guilty, and it could cause major fallout in their cases. So, all right, let's go through this again. We got a couple more to go through. We have Justin Root's case. Again, a case that many can get familiar with or are familiar with here in Massachusetts. What I'm going to do after the live stream tonight, I'll post the link to this slideshow in the comments so you all can seek it out and read about these cases. I think it's very informative for all of you to do that and get kind of caught up to speed. So real quick summary of Justin's So it says location outside Brigham and Women's Hospital near Justin Root's longtime mental health clinic in Boston. The initial encounter, Justin had, who had been treated for nearly a decade at that clinic, was approached by a hospital security guard. After a brief, non-threatening exchange, the guard falsely reported that Justin had threatened to shoot him. The guard believed he saw a gun in Justin's waistband, what was actually a clear plastic paintball marker or paintball gun. It had escalated with Brigham and Women's Hospital security guards, unarmed, agitated the situation. Instead of diffusing it, a mental health security officer nearby recognized the object as a toy. Police response: Boston police arrived and opened fire within 5 minutes, firing 15 rounds. Justin also had psychiatric disability. Shouted that that he was with law enforcement, known as a symptom of the condition. One officer already with weapon drawn approached Justin from behind within 3 feet. When Justin turned to reveal the toy, the officer fired, shattered it. Both officers then discharged their weapons. A stray bullet hit a hospital valet in the head. And then after a pursuit, he was badly wounded. 4 police cruisers followed near, never ran the license plate, which could have revealed his identity and medical condition in medical history. Without provocating, one officer initiated a pit maneuver, a tactic typically reserved for dangerous high-speed situation. Justin, now terrified, bleeding, panicked, and fled further, fearing for his life. And then ultimately there was a massive gunfire at the end. I believe it was over 30 or 50 shots that were fired into his body, and ultimately he succumbed to those injuries. So we have again, Boston police officers involved in this, and again, there's a amazing. Again, I'll leave the link to this presentation if you want to go in and read more about Justin's case. And listen, then we have the ties again. Michael Proctor, part of this case again. Yuri Buchanan, part of this case. And we have all that potential fallout because we know what has gone on in other cases as well. And it just leads back to all those intertwining things. You know, if we can't believe these officers in this case and their investigation and the evidence that they're bringing forth, how can we believe what they're saying in all of these cases? It's doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the testimony from one case is going to follow them to another. Their practice out in the field, collection or lack thereof, preservation of evidence, holding back evidence, it's just, again, pattern in these cases. And, we may see variations based on the different circumstances because each case has its own elements. But it's just, again, I look at the patterns, Brian, Nan, and, if they show up in one, you're going to see them again by the same players.
No, I agree.
I just wanted to say to the audience, like, I've had multiple opportunities now to meet Jen Root, who is his sister and is such a wonderful soul. So I just wanted to say a special hello to her at this time, and also to say, and to dovetail with what Todd is saying, there is a pattern here. It's permeating throughout the cases. As far as Justin's case is concerned, I mean, Jen's had to take this matter all the way up to the Supreme Court. I believe twice was what I heard. I had known only about once, but I had just recently heard it was twice. And with all of that said, she's been fighting endlessly for justice for him. And what we're seeing are law enforcement who, there were mistakes made. If law enforcement, no one's going to sit on this panel and say, hey, there was inappropriate use of a firearm and that's never okay. Sometimes firearms are discharged and decisions have to be made split second. You can't always say that's the wrong thing to have happened with a firearm. But what has happened here is law enforcement really misstepped with Justin. Had they exercised some simple steps.
There's Jen right there. Hi, Jen.
Oh, hey, Jen. How are you?
Jen's in the chat. Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Or at least see see your
The
handle.
chat name, yeah.
But as far as Justin's case is concerned, look at all that Jen has had to do. There are people who support her and her cause. I know I do. And Jen, if there's anything more I can do for that cause or for you, please let me know. But when we see this pattern, if law enforcement would simply say, you know what, there were mistakes made and we're going to retrain, re-educate, apologize, penalize or discipline the officers who did improperly conduct their duties on that day, instead of just sweeping it under the rug, claiming no accountability. I mean, that's where this permeates, this corruption. And look at all that Jen has had to do to try to just keep focused attention on it. And another point about Jen, she would walk across the buffer zone for Karen's case with a huge sign for him.
Yeah.
And in many cases, many instances had to cover it up, because while she would walk from point A to point B, had to cover the content of the sign just because she wanted to keep messaging relevant for her brother. Like, we should never live in a world like that. So everyone, if you don't know about Justin's case, please look into it. Go to the website. There it's posted, and become involved in it. I intend on becoming more involved in it if there's anything that can be done at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I've seen, I watch a lot of body cam videos, and I enjoy watching that because I like to see how situations unfold. And believe me, I mean, I've seen people that have done, how do I explain this, have literally pulled like rifles, rifles on police officers, and they essentially, yes, they'll hold their service weapons on that person, but will eventually end up talking to them to put down a weapon or potentially anything that they have in their hand. And it, to me, I just look at this case and I'm like, is this a case of just itchy trigger fingers? People just show up and it wants to be the Wild West, and we're just going to start shooting, and not trying to de-escalate a situation or whatever it may be. That's what I kind of see here. And just such excessive force in all of this, where, there could have been at a particular point in this exchange where it could have de-escalated to a certain point and a life could have been saved. I just thought, well over 30, 15 shots, I think initially, and then well over 30, just a few miles down the road is super excessive
And
in this situation.
Sorry to interrupt you, Brian, but you see a similar excessive use of force, although not involving a firearm, in the Haverhill, if I'm stating
Haverhill.
that.
Haverhill.
I'll never get Massachusetts town.
Yeah, Haverhill.
In the Haverhill incident involving Francis Gigliotti a couple weeks ago, where had police taken steps to de-escalate, to ask some questions, to sit him up against a car, to put a pause on the excessive use of force, just as I say, take a beat, then that would have prevented, in my opinion, another unnecessary death. So it's really not just germane to the same characters we're talking about. It requires a more global solution, which involves training, education, also disabusing law enforcement of its inclination to kind of cover up for one another. But that Gigliotti case is really at its inception. I don't know that there's covering up going on.
Well, that's where we can hire Todd, because that's his expertise, de-escalation. He deals with these tactics in his professional life now. So Todd, if any of these police departments need some de-escalation training, why don't they get a hold of you? You can retrain and start setting some programs in these departments.
It does boil down to training, right to the threat assessment that we're talking about in Justin's case. Understanding, taking a read, like Nan just said, take a beat, get a good read. I always say, do a threat assessment. You're constantly assessing the behavior of the person of interest or the subject in the moment of time. For the Haverhill case, same thing. I used to literally train police officers 2-on-1 tactics to avoid a pig pile, because all a pig pile does is create positional asphyxia, where you've got dead weight piled up on somebody on the bottom, and the other side of that body is the pavement. And so it boils down to training, awareness, and being able to communicate as law enforcement professionals. And I say professionals because they're trained. They shouldn't be hooligans or thugs out there with the guns in the street with guns and badges.
Before we move on to Miles King, and we'll get through that, and then I just want to finish up with some information, some quotes that came in about the federal investigation. Then we'll wrap it up here. I just want to go back to Justin's the slide presentation here, because I wanted to kind of just shine some light on this. So this was the paintball gun that was inside Justin's hands at that time, and I just want to point out of how close this officer is to that paintball gun. It's clear in my mind. You have enough time to assess of actually what it is. It's not posing any type of pistol or handgun. I think it could have been done a lot better in this situation. And that's just my personal opinion. There's plenty of time here, as we can see in the security camera footage. I mean, this marker here is 3 feet. I think that's pretty identifiable in a 3-foot situation.
But
Brian,
go ahead, Todd.
It's hard, Brian. I mean, people are manufacturing guns out of 3D printers. So, and again, it's hard again, because I'm coming into this case late as well.
Sure.
But in the moment, it's hard. You really don't know what someone's carrying based on the creative and technological advantage.
Could we have de-escalated better though, Todd? I mean, like I said, I've seen videos with worse things that are going on, and literally talk people to put rifles down or like legitimate handguns.
Possible. I would never say no. I just, not being there in the Monday quarterback, it's
Sure.
a challenge.
Yeah.
But even so, and I definitely would say, in a split-second instance, when you feel like you have a weapon pointed at you as law enforcement, sometimes there's not a reasonable time to assess, oh, that's a paintball gun, or, oh, that's 3D printed and wouldn't shoot. So I cut them slack for that. What I don't cut them slack for is 30-something wounds, shots, and I'm sure there were more than 31 that were fired. I'm interested in finding out, and I'm showing my ignorance of all of the nooks and crannies of Justin's case.
Sure.
But I'd be interested to find out if there is training for law enforcement to maim, M-A-M-E, I don't even know how to spell maim, but it's such a rarely used word for me. Maim a suspect. Don't shoot to kill. Like, I don't think any of the facts as I know them were, what is Jen saying?
Jen says, just know this officer saw it with Justin 2 minutes before this.
Okay.
So essentially, and again, I'm coming into this too, Jen. I know I've sat down and spoke with you. I had you up in the studio. I'm still reading and educating myself about that, and I appreciate you being here in the chat. You're such a sweet lady. I've had many interactions with you, and I appreciate you being here. But yeah, I think this is giving more context to the situation as well too.
And it's just,
it's the training term. The training term is shoot to stop.
Shoot to stop. That's much easier to say than maim or spell it. I'm sure I've misspelled it and we'll get ripped tomorrow on Twitter. Shoot to stop, shoot someone in the kneecap, shoot someone in, a non-major artery. That's where training should be too. And I dare say, it's not just police overstepping. It's also the infusion of video games and all of the online gaming that's out there, where and movies. You see all of this violence in social media, video games, and movies, where everybody seems to think, oh, it's okay, just shoot. It's overkill.
Yeah.
He did not need to be overkilled. No matter, even if he had a weapon, a legitimate weapon and was going to shoot one or more of the officers. They didn't need to shoot him that many times. He could have survived. He stood a chance. I don't need to know this case inside and out to say that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. All right, let's move on to Miles King, and then we'll finish up with some quotes from concerning the feds in all of these cases, and I found it to be very interesting. So we'll talk about Miles King. Obviously, this case came back on the radar the other day. It involves Adam Lally, Michael Proctor, not properly turning over discovery in Miles King's case. This is a case back from 2021, and it's the murder of Marquise Simmons. King is charged with first-degree murder. King has put, not guilty. And the connection to the Karen Reed's case is that it's the same officers or prosecutors involved in Reed's case, Michael Proctor and Adam Lally. Well, Adam Lally the other day had to get up and testify, and essentially did one of his lunchbox moments of the abda moments, and got pressed hard by, and I'm gonna mess her name up again, Nan.
It's either Scapicchio or Scapicchio. Either way, she's badass.
Pressed hard. And if anybody hasn't seen it yet, and I'm actually going to plan on watching it tonight, Trial 4 on Netflix, about Sean Ellis, that it was wrongly convicted, I believe, in 1993, and went through hell to get his innocence back here in the state of Massachusetts. But Adam Lally did an abda, and it was funny because I actually went through and played that hearing the other day, and I felt that Mr. Lally, because Mr. Proctor wasn't there, was kind of throwing him under the bus a little bit, and wanted to get the blame and shake the blame off himself. And I'm going to be curious to see when these two lovers get back together, because Proctor's going to be there on the 5th, and Lally's going to be there again on the 5th. And it's going to be a wonderful little matchup when they have to face each other and have to answer some tough questions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first off, that was so much fun. As you know, Brian, I was like, are you not watching this right now? I know you were working.
I was working.
It was magic. I cannot wait to hear more of the Lally backtracking. But interestingly, think about it. Even though they didn't call Proctor in Karen Reed 2.0, Lally did call him in Karen Reed 1.0.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this affinity that Lally had for Proctor at the time. All bets are off at this point. There's nothing, there's no love lost between these two. Proctor wants his job back. He wants the support. He doesn't want to be, pardon my French, gentlemen, shit on. He probably thinks they're a bunch of dicks. Also, pardon my French, it's later in the evening. I talk like a sailor past 8 p.m. And I feel, honestly, that when we think about it, Proctor's going to show up. I will tell you, I'm not sure Proctor's going to testify that day, because there's much more to explore with Lally. We'll see. But there's really not much that can be done here. It's both of their faults. The buck stops with Lally in terms of who has the ultimate obligation to produce missing evidence, subpoenas, not subpoenas, search warrants, and the affidavits.
Yeah.
But let's hear what Proctor has to say, because if we recall, Buchanan is the one who said that, what was it? He thought that Proctor's investigation was done with either integrity or honor. I can't remember which.
Honor, integrity.
Yeah, I thought it was one or the other, but either way, he has, it's a pattern, and this pattern ain't going away.
Yeah. So real quick, defense arguments, evidence was held for 2 years, including 6 search warrants and hundreds of pages of documentation. It's a little important here. Michael Proctor obviously involved, Adam Lally. It just keeps getting, I don't want to say keeps getting better, but it just keeps getting worse. And again, Proctor and Lally connected to this, and then it ultimately goes up to the big guy, Michael Meatball Morrissey. And again, I'll put this slideshow. I know we didn't go through all of it tonight. It's a very long slide presentation, but I'll put the link so you all can read in the comments. All right, let's finish up on this last topic. And we've heard a lot about this, about Hank Brennan coming out, making this quote almost immediately after Karen Reed's retrial, and says, Oh, no, the feds aren't looking into this anymore. But I found this very interesting in that Vanity Fair article. And there are some quotes. And it says, after the verdict, Jeffrey Noble, the leader of the Massachusetts State Police, an organization so famous for corruption that Martin Scorsese made a movie about them, accepting some responsibility in a statement, quote, in the events of the last 3 years have challenged our department to thoroughly review our actions and take concrete steps to deliver advanced investigation training, ensure appropriate oversight, and enhance accountability. According to Rollins, oh, I love this, law enforcement officers and others involved in the case could, and this is Karen's case, could still face criminal charges, state or federal administrative investigations and proceedings, and other career-altering and ending determinations from regulators. There have been repercussions for Morsi, too, the current Norfolk DA, who has never faced a challenger since assuming his position in 2010, now has multiple challenges in his upcoming 2026 election. And I'm putting this out there. Candidates, you're too late. You need to start getting now, not tomorrow, now. And you missed a lot of opportunity in this. The fallout is real. So far, Morsi's competition for the 2026 election is Perkins and Craig, I think it's McClellan. I might have that right or wrong. Other former district attorney officers, attorney in Suffolk County. Rollins led the U.S. Attorney Office of Massachusetts when a federal probe into the law enforcement investigation of O'Keefe's death was initiated. A federal grand jury was convened, but no law enforcement officers have been charged with federal crimes. Rollins resigned in May of 2023 after internal investigation alleged she committed ethical breaches of misuse of power in office. While Rollins would not comment on the federal investigation, her thoughts on Special Prosecutor Brennan's assertion this March that the investigation is over. Quote, oh, I love this. Hank Brennan is not a member of the Department of Justice. His statement that the investigation is closed is meaningless, she said. The silence of the federal government can just be that. Silence and intact because they have closed their investigation and will never tell the public or the DOJ in stealth mode, putting the finishing touches on arrest and search warrants and editing press releases before impending press conferences. You never know until it happens or it doesn't. I love that quote, and that's definitely how the FBI works. It's just they will come a knocking when they got the goods on you.
Oh, that's right.
Stay tuned.
When I read that, I was like, finally, someone who hopefully is believed, because so many people think I'm, just blowing smoke when I say that this investigation's not over. I'm happy someone was willing to commit in print for an international publication that he wrong.
You wrong.
Yeah, you wrong. And notice there was never anything else discussed about it by Brennan or whose name is escaping me, Rafferty. Like they were, Rafferty was happy to put it on the Canton PD letterhead, her own letterhead, that the investigation was closed. Brennan was happy to announce that the investigation was closed right at a specific strategic time before trial 2.0 in Karen's case. But then it was like nothing. So it was a soundbite. It was done to hit the media wire at the right time, right before trial. They're still watching. And I dare say, Brian, I'm going to go one step further. The feds at some point, will have read the Vanity Fair article and hopefully have seen this stream and your beautiful work that you've put together to really tie these cases and bad actors together and say, you know what, there is a lot more here than even maybe we're not aware of. So your constant diligence in keeping this relevant and bringing it to the public's attention without fear and with bravery, I admire you for that.
Good work.
I appreciate that. Todd, what do you think? I always feel like somebody's watching me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the new theme song in the background as we talk about these cases. Look, we found out about the Fed's involvement Again, like I said earlier in the show, it opened up Pandora's box for so many different areas, not just the John O'Keefe investigation and the Karen Reed trial. The feds are there. I've said this all along, Brian. I've mentioned potential civil rights violations because of the police misconduct. I'm sticking to that until it is no longer. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. You know what's cool? I actually, when the federal letters broke in Karen Reed's case, I was the person that actually broke them on my channel. I had an amazing source that gave them to me, and I think I had Tom CPU on, and we read through them. I want to actually go back. I think I still have them somewhere. I want to go back and reread them because I want to see, what information, what conversations were happening, because we blazed through them, but I want to go back and actually fully read them, and
probably some gold in there.
Maybe we can dig something up and talk about those again sometimes. But
I remember that, Brian.
It was like over, because it was crazy. That was really the time when we still had low view counts at that time. We weren't really getting a lot of the viewers, but I think I remember seeing like 8,000 people on YouTube watching that day. It was crazy.
I remember that day, and that was back when I was just in the chats. And I remember saying that the two of you and Tommy, CPU, looked like kids on Christmas morning.
Oh God!
When you were going through those letters, and that stream was one of a few streams where I was like, I might be able to provide a little guidance. Like I know we've talked about this, where I've kind of was learning to build some confidence that I might be able to help speak up a little bit. The two of you handled that great. And I would be interested in, I might go back and watch that stream.
Yeah, I have to go back because so much has changed. I was still in my bedroom then. I remember that. Still in my bedroom. I think I still had the long beard too. But anyway, I digress. Let me do this before we wrap up real quick. Unicorn, thank you for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. NH Dude, thank you for becoming a new member. And Brian asks, hey, B, great panel. I remember Todd at Logan, and I was a Massport FF and attorney. Nan, you're so beautiful and professional. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And you have
Thanks, Brian.
Someone that knows you. Ham Sammy, $10. Thank you. Says, appreciate this amazing trio as a whole. But Nan, I truly love your sharp insight, depths of knowledge, and the way that in which you help us non-legal eagles. Oh, I like that. Understand that sometimes confusing legal jargon. She does such a great job. And I always say she's the best attorney on all of these shows.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ham Sammy. So Scandy. What an interesting handle that is. Thank you.
And then Grant's Rope Belt, $5 says and this is a great way to end this show. The feds are still there. And I agree. I agree. Well, it's been a pleasure spending almost 2 hours with both of you again on this Monday night. For the audience, I will do this. I'll drop the presentation in the comments to get you educated about a lot of these cases that we talked about tonight. I just didn't have the 4 hours to go through all of them, but there's a lot of great information in that slide presentation. So I will piece that together for all. I will put in the comments for you. I want to thank my guests again this evening, the one and only Nan Gallagher, attorney Nan Gallagher, for joining us here. The hair took over the whole stream tonight. It's the hair, Nan. It's the hair. And then
the whole vibe.
My great friend, retired Mass State Police Trooper Todd McGhee. And I want to finish this out again. I will not be back live until Sunday, and we're going to have a fun thing planned here in front of a live audience. The Sunday 617 will take place here in LTL Studios. I have my good friend Mark Mazzamedia will be joining me for a 2-hour live show. We're going to do a meet and greet just before that. Unfortunately, tickets are sold out, but if this all goes well, we're going to be planning a much bigger one here pretty soon and hopefully get some more people up on panel. I think it will be a really great time. So this is the test run. I want to thank my buddy Mark for joining me for that. And we have about 30 people that'll be in the live audience. It will be live streamed, so you can watch us while we go through the 2-hour live. So Sunday at 6 p.m. that stream starts. So I will be actually, you know what? No, I'm going to be back on Wednesday night with Adam Teeper Legal, and we're going to talk a little bit more Cop Tua, the situation that's going on down in Groton, Connecticut with Sean, Long Island auditor. So join me on Wednesday night, 6 p.m., and I will be shutting it down until Sunday. I want to thank everybody again. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I love all of you, my 2 panel guests on Monday night. Thank you so much for doing this again, and we'll see everybody soon. Everybody have a great night. Like, share, and subscribe. Bye, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.